The invoice sat in my inbox like a loaded gun. $650 for a weekend stay at my own beach house. I had to read it 3 times before the reality sank in. My sister was actually trying to charge me rent for a property I'd paid nearly $2 million to purchase. I'm Helen, and 8 years ago I fell for the biggest con of my life. Not from strangers, but from my own flesh and blood. "It'll be our family dream home," Brooke had said, her eyes sparkling with that familiar enthusiasm that always preceded asking for money. We were sitting at our favourite cafe, the one where she'd convinced me to fund her yoga studio startup 5 years earlier. A place where we can all gather, make memories, watch the kids grow up. I remember stirring my coffee, already feeling the familiar tug of responsibility. "It's a big investment, Brooke. We'll all pitch in. Julian and I can handle the maintenance, Nesta will take care of the landscaping, and Frankie's already planning the interior design. Mum's so excited. You know how she's always wanted a place by the ocean." I should have seen the red flags. Should have noticed how nobody discussed actual financial contributions. But that's the thing about family manipulation. It's wrapped in enough truth to make the lies palatable. 3 months later, I signed the papers. The beach house was gorgeous. 4 bedrooms, ocean views, a pool that Brooke's daughter Jolie immediately claimed as her spot. Everyone was there for the celebration, popping champagne and making grand plans. To family, my mother Scarlett had toasted, her voice thick with emotion, and to Helen for making this possible. That was the last time I felt truly included. The excuses started small. "Oh, we didn't think you'd want to come for Memorial Day. You're always so busy with work." Or, "Jolie's friends booked the house for spring break months ago. Didn't Brooke tell you?" I buried myself in my real estate business, telling myself it was fine. Family shares, family understands. Until last week, when I finally put my foot down. "I'd like to use the beach house next weekend," I texted Brooke. "Just for 2 days. 3 hours later, the invoice arrived. Room rental, $650. Cleaning fee, $100. Security deposit, $200. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. "We need to keep things fair. Everyone pays their share when they use the house." I pulled up my financial records. Every mortgage payment, every insurance premium, every property tax bill, paid from my account. The new deck Nesta had surprised everyone with last summer. My credit card. The professional cleaning service Brooke insisted on. My monthly subscription. "Fair," I whispered to my empty home office. The word tasted like ash. My phone buzzed again. A group chat message from Brooke. "Beach house pool party this Saturday. Jolie's swim team celebration. Everyone welcome." Below it, rapid fire responses. "Count us in." Frankie, bringing my famous guac. Nestor. Perfect timing. Julian just got a new grill. Mum. I wasn't explicitly uninvited. I never was. They'd just learned that scheduling things when I had major client meetings was the easiest way to keep me out without having to be the bad guys. I opened my laptop and began typing a response to Brooke's invoice. My fingers hovered over the keys. 8 years of swallowing my pride, of being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who could always be counted on to understand. Another text from Brooke. "Don't forget to send the payment before Friday if you want to use the house. We're trying to keep everything professional." Professional. Right. I closed my laptop without responding and reached for my phone. There was one number I should have called years ago. My old college friend Remington had become one of the city's top real estate attorneys, and I suddenly had some questions about the ownership structure Brooke had insisted would protect everyone. "Hey Rem," I said when he picked up. "Remember that beach house situation I got myself into? I think it's time we took a closer look at those papers I signed." His response was immediate. "I was wondering when you'd finally call about that." "Helen, you're being ridiculous." Brooke's voice crackled through my phone speaker. "This is how families share costs. We all contribute." I sat at my kitchen counter, spreadsheets scattered around me like evidence at a crime scene. "Contribute? I've paid for everything, Brooke. Everything." "That's not true." "Julian just bought a new grill." "With the credit card I gave him for emergency maintenance," I interrupted. "I have the statement right here." There was a pause. Then Brooke's tone shifted to that syrupy sweetness she used when manipulating our mother. "Sweetie, I think you're just stressed from work. You've always been so intense about money. Remember what Dad used to say about, don't! My voice cracked. Don't you dare use Dad right now. But I did remember. 3 days before cancer took him, Dad had pulled me close, his hand trembling as he gripped mine. Helen, promise me you'll watch out for them, but don't let them. He'd started coughing then, never finishing the sentence. I'd spent years thinking he meant don't let them struggle. Now I wondered if he'd been trying to warn me about something else entirely. Look, Brooke sighed. If the rental fee is too much, we can discuss a family discount. Maybe 400? I pulled up my accounting software. I've paid 94% of all expenses since we bought the house. That's $1.87 million, Brooke. Where's your contribution? We handle the scheduling, the maintenance, the emotional labour of keeping everyone together. You can't put a price on family, Helen. Apparently, they could, and did, $650 worth. I need to go, I said, hanging up before she could respond. My phone immediately lit up with text messages. Nestor. Sis, why you gotta make everything about money? Bad vibes. Mum. Called Brooke, crying. How could you upset her like this? Frankie. Girl, we need to talk. This isn't you. I blocked them all. My laptop pinged with an email from Remington. Meeting in 20. Brought coffee and found something interesting in those 2015 docs. 15 minutes later, I walked into Remington's office. He hadn't changed much since college. Same wire-rimmed glasses, same habit of tapping his pen when he had news. He was tapping now. So, he said, sliding a coffee across his desk. Want the good news or the really good news? There's good news. He pulled out a thick folder. Remember how Brooke insisted on putting the beach house in an LLC to protect everyone? I nodded. She said it would keep us all safe from liability issues if anyone got hurt on the property. Well, Remington grinned. I just spent 3 hours reviewing the operating agreement. Helen, you own controlling interest. 100% controlling interest. What? But Brooke said we were all equal partners. On paper, you're the only member with voting rights. They're listed as non-voting members with 0 equity stake. Basically, they have no legal claim to the property at all. He leaned back. Your sister either didn't read the paperwork, or she thought I wouldn't, I finished. A cold clarity washed over me. She never expected me to check. She thought I'd just keep paying forever. Remington's pen stopped tapping. There's more. Those renovations they did last summer. Legally, they needed your written approval as the controlling member. Without it, they technically committed property conversion. In English, Rem, they stole from you, Helen, and I can prove it. I stared at the papers. Years of built-up resentment crystallising into something harder, colder. What are my options? Legally, you can evict them, sue for damages, or both. The property's yours. They have 0 claim to it. He paused. But they're your family. What do you want to do? My phone buzzed with a new message from Jolie, my niece. Way to make Mom cry, Aunt Helen. Good thing we're having the pool party this weekend without your toxic energy. I showed Remington the text. How fast can you draw up eviction papers? He was already reaching for his laptop. Give me an hour, but Helen... His eyes met mine over the screen. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout? I thought about Dad's unfinished warning. About 8 years of exclusion wrapped in family obligation. About the invoice sitting in my inbox like a declaration of war. They're not my family, Rem. They're just people who've been stealing from me for 8 years. I stood up, straightening my jacket. And I want my house back. The beach house looked different now. Every pristine window, every carefully maintained flower bed represented another dollar they'd extracted from me. I sat in my car across the street, watching Nestor's beat-up van in the driveway, while Remington reviewed our strategy. Everything's filed, he said, shuffling papers. But we need documented evidence of their response to a reasonable request for access. Try asking to stay tonight. I pulled out my phone, typed a message I'd rehearsed a dozen times. I'm outside. I'd like to stay the weekend. My house. My right. The response was immediate. Splashing sounds from the pool stopped. Figures moved behind the windows. My phone erupted. Nestor. Whoa. Bad timing, sis. We're having a private gathering. Jolie. OMG, are you literally stalking us right now? Brooke. Helen, you're being inappropriate. We'll discuss this later. I stepped out of my car, Remington close behind with his briefcase. Music blasted from the backyard, my backyard, as we approached the front door. I used my key, the one they hadn't managed to take away yet. The scene in the backyard was exactly what I expected. Nesta floating on a pool lounger, Jolie and her friends scattered around the deck, and Brooke holding court by the new grill that I'd apparently bought. What part of private gathering didn't you understand? Brooke stood, her voice carrying that familiar note of authority she'd used to control me for years. I understand perfectly, I said, Remington a reassuring presence behind me. I understand that this is my house, and I'm staying the weekend. Jolie emerged from the pool, water dripping onto the expensive deck tiles. God, you're so embarrassing. Nobody wants you here. Jolie, Brooke warned, but her slight smile told me she approved of her daughter's cruelty. Nesta paddled to the pool's edge. Helen, your energy is really disrupting our peace right now. Maybe you should do some meditation. Find your centre. My centre? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make them flinch. My centre is right here, in this house that I paid for, watching my family throw a party they didn't bother to invite me to. You're always too busy, Brooke snapped. Always working. Always counting dollars instead of making memories. Counting dollars? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. You mean like the $4,000 you spent last month on pool maintenance? Or the $8,000 for the new furniture you didn't tell me about? That was a necessary expense. Or maybe, I continued, my voice rising, the $20,000 you borrowed from my emergency fund for Jolie's Sweet 16, the one you promised to repay. Silence fell across the pool deck. Even Jolie's friends looked uncomfortable. You're making a scene, Brooke hissed. No, I said quietly. I'm making a point. I turned to Remington. Show them. He stepped forward, opening his briefcase. I'm Mrs. Lynch's attorney. I have here documentation showing she has sole controlling interest in this property. All renovations, modifications, and occupancy decisions legally require her approval. Attorney? Nesta scrambled out of the pool. Helen, this isn't very enlightened of you. Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. I'm done with the guilt trips, done with the manipulation, done with all of it. I turned to Brooke. You wanted to keep things professional? Fine, let's get professional. Remington handed me a stack of papers. I dropped them on a pool chair, watching water spots blur the ink. What's this? Brooke picked up the top sheet, her face paling. Documentation of every unauthorised expenditure, every unapproved modification, and every dollar you've taken from me over the past 8 years. I met her eyes. Plus an invoice, since we're all about fair shares now. You can't be serious, she whispered. Dead serious. You have 24 hours to clear out your personal belongings. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Jolie, that meditation pool float you're on, I paid for that too. Enjoy it while you can. Walking away, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Brooke's shrill protests, Nesta's spiritual platitudes, Jolie's dramatic sobs. But for the first time in years, their voices didn't have any power over me. That went well, Remington said as we reached the car. I looked back at the house, my house, one last time. No, it didn't. But it went exactly as it needed to. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Your father would be so ashamed. I turned off my phone, started my car and smiled. Dad had tried to warn me about family loyalty being a weapon. He'd be proud I'd finally learned to fight back. The hotel room felt sterile and empty, but it was better than going home. I opened my laptop, pulled up the beach house's smart home dashboard, the one I paid for and they'd forgotten I could access. The security cameras flickered to life. They were still there, of course. Brooke pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Nesta sprawled on my couch, probably plotting his next spiritual guilt trip. Jolie and her friends had moved the party inside, leaving wet footprints on my hardwood floors. I turned up the volume. She's lost her mind, Brooke was saying. No, Mom, you don't understand. She brought a lawyer. Yes, an actual lawyer. A pause. Of course I read the paperwork before we signed it. I'm not stupid. I smiled. 8 years of letting them think I was the stupid one, the naive one, the one who'd always give in. Not anymore. My phone lit up with a text from Remington. Everything's filed. Sheriff's Department confirmed lockout scheduled for Saturday. You sure about this? I watched through the cameras as Jolie knocked over a wine glass, red liquid seeping into the white carpet. Nobody moved to clean it up. I'm sure, I texted back. The next few days, I worked from the hotel, keeping the security feeds open on my second monitor. It was like watching a reality show where I finally knew the plot twist. Wednesday, they threw another party. Bigger this time, as if defying my authority. Thursday, Brooke brought in her own lawyer, who left looking frustrated after 2 hours. Friday, they started moving things, expensive things, my things. I picked up my phone. Hello, police. I'd like to report theft in progress at my property. The officers arrived within 20 minutes. I watched through the cameras as Brooke tried to charm them, watched her face fall when they asked for proof of ownership. But we're family, she kept saying, as if that explained everything. They made them put everything back. Every borrowed painting, every borrowed piece of furniture. I saved the footage, sent it to Remington. That night, I accessed the smart home controls, turned the heat up to 80 degrees, changed the Wi-Fi password, set all the lights to strobe slowly, just enough to be annoying. Small things, petty things. But after 8 years of being invisible, it felt good to remind them I existed. At 3 a.m, my phone rang. Nestor. The house is haunted, he slurred, clearly drunk. There's negative energy everywhere. The spirits are angry. No, I cut in. I'm angry. And I'm not a spirit, I'm the owner. Get out of my house. Friday night, I watched them pack. Watched Brooke instruct Jolie to take pictures of every room for evidence. Evidence of what? How well they'd maintained a house they'd stolen from me? A memory surfaced. My 35th birthday 3 years ago. I'd driven to the beach house, hoping to surprise them. They were all there, taking family photos on the deck. I'd stood in the driveway, watching through the window as they posed and laughed. "Oh, Helen!" Brooke had said when she finally noticed me. "We didn't think you'd come. You're always so busy." They'd never added me to the photos. My phone buzzed. A series of texts. Brooke. "You're making a huge mistake." Nestor. "The universe will remember this betrayal, sister." Mum. "Please, Helen, let's talk about this like family." Jolie. "I hate you. I actually hate you." I opened the smart home app one last time, set all the TVs to play a single message on repeat. Checkout time, noon tomorrow. Then I typed out a single response to all of them. Family doesn't steal from family. See you at the lockout. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my hotel chair, exhausted but calm. Tomorrow the sheriff would arrive. Tomorrow they'd finally understand what it felt like to be locked out. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Just heard what happened with the beach house. Ready to talk about what Brooke did 8 years ago? I froze, recognizing the area code. Aubrey, my former best friend. The one who disappeared after that business deal with Brooke went bad. The one secret I'd never uncovered. I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Some truths you think you're ready for until they're staring you in the face. Tomorrow, I typed back, after the lockout. First, I had a family to evict. Then finally, I'd learned just how deep Brooke's betrayals really went. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind my car at exactly noon. I watched my family through the living room windows, still acting like they owned the place, still believing I wouldn't go through with it. "Ready?" Remington asked, holding the final paperwork. I nodded, and we approached the front door together. The sheriff, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanour, followed with the locksmith. The door opened before we could knock. Brooke stood there, perfectly posed in her designer outfit, like she was greeting guests at one of her charity functions. "Helen," she smiled tightly, "surely we can discuss this privately, like family." "Step aside, ma'am," the sheriff said. "We have a court order." Inside, the scene was exactly what I'd expected. Julian pacing by the fireplace, Nesta cross-legged on the floor, pretending to meditate, Mom crying softly on the couch. Jolie stood at the top of the stairs, filming everything on her phone. "This is going on TikTok," she announced. "Everyone's going to see what a monster you are." "Go ahead," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "Show them how you lived in a house for 8 years without paying a dime. I'm sure that'll go viral." The locksmith started working on the front door while the sheriff read out the order. I watched their faces as reality finally sank in. "But the LLC," Brooke stammered. "We all signed." Remington stepped forward, documents in hand. "Actually, Mrs. Wallace, you signed away all voting rights. Your sister has been the sole controlling member since day one. Here's the paperwork, if you'd like to review it." The colour drained from Brooke's face. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "You can't do this," Julian finally spoke, his voice shaking. "We have rights." "No," I said quietly. "You really don't." Mum stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Helen, please! Think about what this will do to the family." "I have thought about it. For 8 years, I've thought about nothing else." I turned to the sheriff. "They have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items. Everything else can be claimed next week with proper supervision." "This is karma," Nestor declared, finally opening his eyes. "The universe will make you pay for this negative energy." "Karma?" I laughed. "Karma is watching you all finally face consequences. Karma is standing here while you realise that every signature, every document, every legal detail you thought you could ignore is coming back to haunt you." 15 minutes, the sheriff announced. They scattered like startled birds, grabbing photos and electronics. Jolie ran to her room, slamming the door. Brooke stood frozen, staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. "The trust fund," she whispered. "What Aubrey told you? We'll discuss that later," I cut her off. "Much later." The locksmith finished with the doors, handing me new keys. The sound of them jingling in my hand was sweeter than any music. 5 minutes. Mom made one last attempt, clutching my arm. "Your father would never have wanted this." I gently removed her hand. "Dad tried to warn me about you all. I just didn't understand until now." Finally, they stood on the driveway, a sad collection of hastily packed bags at their feet. The sheriff posted the final notice on the door, while the locksmith changed the garage code. "This isn't over," Brooke said, but her voice had lost its power. "It is," I replied. "It really is." They left one by one, Nestor in his van, Julian and Jolie in their SUV, Mum in her sedan. Brooke was last, standing by her car, mascara streaking her cheeks. "We're your family," she tried one last time. "No," I said. "You're just people who took advantage of someone who wanted a family so badly she let herself be stolen from for 8 years." I watched them drive away, their cars disappearing around the corner. The sheriff nodded respectfully before leaving. Remington squeezed my shoulder and headed to his car. Standing alone in my driveway, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for 8 years. My phone buzzed. Aubrey again. "Saw them leave. Ready to tell you what really happened with that trust fund." I looked at my house, truly mine now, and typed back, "Come over. It's time I learned everything." The truth was coming, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. I walked inside, closed the door, and listened to the beautiful sound of silence in my empty house. Aubrey looked exactly the same as she had 8 years ago, down to the nervous way she twisted her silver rings. We sat on my newly reclaimed patio, watching the waves crash against the shore. "I should have told you sooner," she said, clutching a coffee mug. I couldn't face it. Couldn't face you. "Tell me now." She pulled out a folder, weathered and worn, like she'd carried it for years. "Remember that investment opportunity Brooke brought us? The one she said would triple our money?" I remembered. It was supposed to be a sure thing, a chain of luxury boutiques across 3 states. Brooke had been so convincing, so passionate. "She needed startup capital," Aubrey continued. "You gave her access to your trust fund for the initial investment. I put in my inheritance." "And it failed," I said. "Businesses fail all the time." Aubrey's laugh was bitter. "No, Helen, it never existed." She spread documents across the table. There were no boutiques, no vendors, no contracts, just a lot of pretty paperwork and empty promises. My hands shook as I picked up the papers. Bank statements, wire transfers, all leading to offshore accounts. "She took everything," Aubrey's voice cracked. "My entire inheritance. But you were the real target. She didn't just take your investment." "What do you mean?" "She used your trust fund as collateral for personal loans. Massive loans. When I figured it out and confronted her, she threatened to implicate me in the fraud. Said she'd make it look like we planned it together." The ocean breeze felt suddenly cold. "How much?" "Almost all of it." The beach house purchase? That wasn't just about getting a family vacation spot. She needed a way to hide the missing money, make it look like a legitimate investment. My coffee cup hit the table hard. The LLC structure, the paperwork she insisted on, was designed to give her control of your assets without leaving a paper trail. But she messed up, got sloppy with the legal documents. She gave me controlling interest by mistake, I whispered. It was the only part of her plan that failed. Aubrey reached across the table, gripping my hand. I've spent 8 years gathering evidence, building a case. When I heard about the eviction, I knew it was time. My phone buzzed. Brooke. Mum's in the hospital. Stress-induced panic attack. I hope you're happy. I showed Aubrey the message. More manipulation, she said softly. That's all they know how to do. Another text arrived. Frankie. Just heard everything. Need to talk. Brooke promised me part ownership, but I never saw any paperwork. How many others? I asked Aubrey. How many people did she con? Too many. But you were the biggest target. Family is the perfect cover for fraud. Who questions their own sister? I stood up, walking to the railing. Below, the pool sparkled in the afternoon sun. The pool I'd paid for twice, once through my trust fund and again through the beach house maintenance costs. I want to press charges, I said. Already ahead of you. Aubrey pulled out one more document. I've been working with a federal investigator. They've been building a case for months. They just needed someone to make the first move. The eviction, she nodded. You did exactly what they needed. Proved the property ownership. Established clear documentation of fraud. They're ready to move whenever you are. My phone buzzed again. Nestor. The spirits told me you're planning something dark. Don't let hatred poison your soul, sister. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. He always did have perfect timing with his spiritual insights. Helen, Aubrey stood, joining me at the railing. I'm so sorry I disappeared. I thought I was protecting you by staying away, gathering evidence quietly. I should have trusted you with the truth. We both trusted the wrong sister. Inside, my phone kept buzzing. Messages from family members I'd never really had trying to guilt me into silence. But the time for silence was over. I turned to Aubrey. Call your investigator. Tell them I'm ready to talk. She pulled out her phone, then paused. You know this will destroy them, right? Not just Brooke. All of them. Anyone who knew and stayed quiet. I thought about 8 years of exclusion. About Dad's unfinished warning. About all the family memories I'd paid for but never been part of. They destroyed themselves, I said. They just didn't expect to face consequences. As Aubrey made the call, I watched the sun set over my ocean view. Tomorrow would bring federal agents, formal statements, and the final demolition of my family's carefully constructed lies. But tonight, for the first time in 8 years, I could breathe freely in my own house. The federal agents arrived at dawn. Dark suits, serious faces, stacks of documents that made my own evidence look tiny in comparison. They set up in my living room, turning my beach house into command central for Operation Family Fraud. Their words, not mine. Your sister's been busy, Agent Martinez said, spreading photos across my coffee table. The beach house was just the tip of the iceberg. The images showed Brooke at charity galas, business meetings, country club luncheons, always smiling, always working the room, always finding new victims. We've identified 37 separate instances of investment fraud, another agent explained, plus tax evasion, money laundering, and identity theft. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since they arrived. I finally answered one call. Frankie. Helen, there are FBI agents at my door. Let them in, Frankie. Tell them everything. But Brooke, she said she'd help me start my interior design business. Did she? Or did she take your money and tell you to wait? Silence. Then a sob. How did you know? Because that's what she does. I hung up, turning to Agent Martinez. How many family members were involved? She consulted her notes. Your brother Nestor laundered money through his meditation retreats. Your mother acted as a recruiter, finding vulnerable, wealthy widows at her church. Julian handled the paperwork. Even your niece Jolie was involved. She used her social media to promote fake investment opportunities. My stomach churned, and none of them saw consequences until now. People trust family, she said simply. That's what makes this type of fraud so effective. And so devastating. My phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. They're arresting Julian. Please, Helen, think about Jolie. She's just a child. A child who helped steal millions, Agent Martinez commented, reading over my shoulder. We have evidence of her coaching other teenagers to invest their college funds in fake startups. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times Jolie had mocked me, called me pathetic, filmed me for her mean-spirited social media posts. Not so funny now. The day unfolded like a slow-motion car crash. Arrests, interrogations, confessions. My family's perfect facade crumbling under federal scrutiny. Aubrey stayed with me through all of it, her presence a steady reminder that not all betrayals are permanent, not all wounds unhealable. Your mother's asking to see you, an agent announced late that afternoon. Says she has information to trade. I found Mom in an interview room at the local FBI office, her designer outfit wrinkled, her makeup streaked with tears. Helen, she reached for my hand. I kept them in my pockets. You have to understand. Everything I did for the family. No, I said quietly. You did it for Brooke. You always did everything for Brooke. She's special, Mum insisted. She has a gift. For fraud. For bringing people together, for making things happen. I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call stealing my trust fund? Making things happen? Your father left you too much, she snapped, mask finally slipping. It wasn't fair to the others. We were just redistributing things, making them equal. By stealing? By lying? By surviving? She slammed her hand on the table. Some of us weren't born with your advantages, Helen. Some of us had to take what we needed. I stood up. I worked for everything I have. Everything you stole, I earned. And now you get to learn about earning things too. In federal prison. Her face crumpled. I have information. About other investments, other people involved. Tell it to the agents, I said, walking out. In the hallway, Aubrey waited with Agent Martinez. We found something else, Martinez said softly. Family heirlooms sold from the beach house. Your grandmother's jewellery, your father's watches. Brooke said those were in storage, I whispered. They were sold. We found the transactions. She handed me a document. She forged your signature on the sales. I stared at the paper, at the fake version of my name authorising the sale of my family's history. Something inside me finally broke. I want to press every possible charge, I said through tears. Every single one. Aubrey hugged me, while Agent Martinez nodded grimly. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Nesta. The universe forgives all, sister. When will you? I typed back. The universe might forgive, but the federal government doesn't. Namaste. Outside the FBI office, the sun was setting on the longest day of my life. My family was in custody, my inheritance was being traced, and my heart was simultaneously shattered and stronger than ever. Ready to go home? Aubrey asked. Home? To my beach house. My empty, peaceful, honest beach house. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The booking request popped up on my phone. Beach house rental inquiry from Francesca Dixon. I stared at the notification, coffee growing cold beside my laptop. Through the beach house windows, I could see the sunrise painting the ocean gold. The same view my family had enjoyed while plotting to steal from me. The house felt different now. Peaceful. I'd remodelled everything, erasing their presence room by room. New furniture, new paint, new memories. The property listing on Airbnb had been Aubrey's idea. Reclaim it, she'd said. Make it yours. My phone buzzed again. Frankie was persistent. Please, Helen. I know I don't deserve it, but I need somewhere to stay after the plea deal. Just a few days. The federal case had wrapped up faster than expected. Brooke took a 20-year sentence rather than risk trial. Julian got 15. Mum and Nestor both took deals for 10. Even Jolie faced juvenile detention and mandatory restitution payments. I clicked decline on Frankie's request. Typed a single-word response. Karma. The doorbell rang. Aubrey stood there with breakfast bagels and case files. The forensic accountants found another account, she said, spreading cream cheese on a bagel. Hidden under your grandmother's maiden name. They're still tracing victims. How much this time? 2 million, mostly from Mum's church friends. I shook my head, thinking of all those sweet elderly women who'd trusted my mother's prayers and promises. My laptop pinged. An email from Remington. Final restitution numbers attached. You'll want to sit down for this. I opened the file. The number of zeros made my head spin. They really thought they'd never get caught, Aubrey said, reading over my shoulder. That's the thing about family fraud. Everyone thinks they're special, different, untouchable. We weren't family, I said. We were marks who shared DNA. My phone lit up with a new message. From an unknown number, but I recognised Jolie's writing style. They're making me sell all my designer stuff for restitution. My whole social media empire is gone. I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. I showed Aubrey the text. She snorted. Yeah, you ruined everything. Not the federal crimes or anything. The morning sun filled the house with light as we went through more documents. Victim statements, impact reports. The full scope of my family's deception laid bare in black and white. Another booking request popped up. Beach house rental inquiry from Scarlett Lynch. My mother, using her real name this time, bold. Helen, please. I'm being released to house arrest. I have nowhere to go. Delete. Block. Breathe. You know what's funny? I said to Aubrey. They're all still trying to use this house. Still trying to claim a piece of it. Because it's the only piece left. Everything else is gone. The money, the schemes, the fake businesses. This is real. I walked to the window, watching waves crash against the shore. I thought revenge would feel better. Doesn't it? No, I smiled. It feels perfect. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Dad's old number. Mum must have kept his phone active all these years. Family is everything. Never forget that. Mum? I typed back. You're right. Family is everything. That's why I chose a new one. I blocked that number too, then opened my Airbnb settings. Added one house rule. No bookings accepted from members of the Lynch, Wallace or Dixon families. No exceptions. Ready? Aubrey asked, gathering her things. The victim restitution meeting starts in an hour. I looked around my beach house one last time. My house. My rules. My life. Actually, I said, I want to make one stop first. We drove to the federal detention centre where Brooke was being held. I didn't go inside. Just sat in the parking lot, looking at the high walls and razor wire. You don't owe them anything, Aubrey said softly. Not even a visit. I know. I started the car. I just needed to see it. To know it's real. Back at the beach house that evening, I sat on my deck watching the sunset. My phone was quiet. My house was peaceful. My life was mine again. I opened my laptop and typed out a new property description for the Airbnb listing. Welcome to Karma Beach House, where every sunrise brings new beginnings, every sunset marks endings, and the ocean washes everything clean. Families welcome, real ones only. Then I closed my laptop, picked up my wine glass, and toasted the setting sun. Some families are born, some are chosen, and some are better left to federal prosecutors. I had finally chosen mine.